Hi everybody, this is Lara with your weekly video for Bitcoin for the week beginning Monday, 12th of December 2022. Bitcoin moved lower. We had a short, sharp downward thrust out of that pennant pattern. It did not make a new low, and now it's reversed and it's turned strongly higher. That downward movement found support almost absolutely perfectly at the lower edge of the channel I've got on the weekly and daily Elliott Wave charts. I expect that's it. The second wave is over and we're in the early stages of a third wave up. Elliott Wave analysis first, classic analysis last. This is my main Elliott Wave count. From this low to this high, I'm going to see a complete 5-wave structure. This is the low in December 2018, the end of that year-long bear market, and I'm labeling it a second wave correction. Elliott Wave is fractal. We have to fit the weekly chart into the monthly chart, and I link back at the start of my analysis to where I updated monthly charts last for you. I won't do it every week, it's too much repetition. But if you haven't already viewed that, looked at monthly charts and seen the video, then please do so. Cycle wave 1 was over at December 2017. Cycle 2, the bear market to follow, over on December 2018. An 84% correction of cycle 1. Absolutely normal behavior for Bitcoin. Its second waves are very commonly about 80 to 90% or even deeper as a percentage of its first waves. From this low to this high, I will see my main wave count having primary wave 1 over here with intermediate 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. 5 moved slightly beyond the end of 3. The only thing about this wave count which is atypical is 5 is not longer and stronger than 3. But this is within a first wave. It's not a third wave, so that's okay. But this is the first time at a larger degree Bitcoin has exhibited that behavior. And so I do have an alternate. But this will be my main wave count because it sees intermediate 4 over in 10 weeks, whereas intermediate 2 lasted 37 weeks, and it is extremely common for Bitcoin to exhibit fourth waves which are more brief than its counterpart second waves. Here's a perfect example. Within intermediate wave 1, minor 1, minor 2 lasts several days, minor 3, minor 4 is over in only one day, and then minor 5. This gives Bitcoin's impulses, and this is so typical of all cryptocurrencies, a curved look, particularly in a third wave position, but here we also see it in a first wave position. So it's really common for the fourth wave to be more brief than its counterpart second wave, and very uncommon for it to be the other way around. That's important when we get to the weekly alternate. So this is my main wave count because it follows more common behavior. If we find a wave count which has more common Elliott wave patterns, follows more common behavior for that market, then it has to be judged to have a higher probability. And then other wave counts, which are also absolutely valid, may have less common structures or exhibit less common behavior for the market you're analysing. You have to judge those to have a lower probability. This is an exercise in probability. There's nothing certain in any technical analysis. From this high to this low, intermediate wave 2 subdivides beautifully as a double zigzag. It is a 78% correction of primary wave 2 is a 78% correction of primary wave 1. That's just a little bit more shallow than most common, but absolutely close to very normal behavior. I expect for this wave count now a primary degree wave, a third wave at primary degree within a third wave. Its cycle degree is in its really early stages. It's really common for Bitcoin to start out its movement slowly, accelerate through the middle, and then explode at the end. So we're seeing a slow start. It'll start to pick up later on, accelerate through the middle, and explode at the end. I'm expecting exactly this behavior on a bigger time frame, a higher fractal for primary 3 and for cycle 3. If primary 2 continues any lower, it may not move beyond the start of 1 below 3191.3035, and if it were to continue lower, and I do have an alternate, then a really common range would be for it to reach 80 to 90% the length of primary 1, so 16310.97 to 9751.14. This channel has proven to be really useful. I'm drawing it on a semi-log scale on my weekly chart, and I copy it over to my daily chart, which is now also on a semi-log scale. Draw it from this high to this high, place a copy on this low. We had a breakthrough down here, price found resistance, broke through, checked support, has now had a deeper pullback for support, which has been successful, and now price is moving up and away. That's really normal behavior around a trend line that has reasonable technical significance, and that supports the view that this low is most likely intact and won't be breached. Let's take a look now at the daily chart level with this low here. The possible end of primary 2 is this point here. From this low to this high, this upward movement fits nicely as a leading contracting diagonal for minute wave 1. I might need to move the degree of labeling here up 1 degree. It could be that minor 1 was over here, but I would not move it high as intermediate. So we've still got intermediate 1 to complete, and then intermediate 2 to complete as well. That's coming up in several months probably. Not yet. Minute wave 1, a leading contracting diagonal. Within a leading diagonal, subwaves 2 and 4 may only subdivide as zigzags. Subwaves 1, 3, and 5 most commonly subdivide as zigzags, but sometimes they may appear to be impulses. Those are the rules in Frost and Preachter's classic Elliott Wave Principle, the book, and those are exactly the same rules as I've used in my own book, Pure Elliott Wave. Have not changed any of Elliott's or Frost and Preachter's rules at all. After a leading diagonal in a first wave position, the following second wave correction is commonly really deep. Minute wave 2 has moved a little bit lower last week. It's now an 87% correction of minute wave 1, absolutely within a really common range for Bitcoin from 80 to 90%, and beautifully finding support almost perfectly at the lower edge of this channel, which I've copied over from the weekly chart. Here's the lower edge and here's the upper edge. That gives added confidence, particularly after this really strong upward session here. This gives confidence that this low is also very likely to remain intact. This channel is continuing to provide support, and it looks like this back test is over. If minute 2 were to continue any lower, it may not move beyond the start of 1, below 17,708.623, but I think it's extremely likely that this low will remain intact. Along the way up, if we see a new high above 25,135.59, that would add further confidence to this bullish wave count, because that would invalidate an alternate bearish wave count. Along the way up, a break above resistance at the upper edge of this channel would add even further confidence. Before we see a breakthrough of resistance, I'd expect a back test or a reaction down from resistance before a breakthrough. So when price gets up to this trend line, expect it to provide some resistance before it can break through. My minimum expectation for primary 3 is not a target. This is just the minimum expectation for this third wave. In Bitcoin's prior price history with a full Elliott wave count at higher degrees, the shortest third wave is only 5.71 the length of its counterpart first wave. It's this one here on the weekly chart. This third wave to this first wave is just 5.71 times the length of intermediate 1. Bitcoin's third waves are very commonly much longer than that. They can be up to 50 times the length of the first wave. So, given past price behavior, this is the shortest previous third wave, let's expect primary 3 to be at least equal to the previous shortest third wave, so let's expect it to reach at least 392.275, not a target, a minimum expectation. At the daily chart level, this is the alternate. It differs a little bit from the start of primary wave 2. It's considering a single zigzag, so the weekly chart's the same, but primary wave 2 is a single zigzag. Within the single zigzag, intermediate A are complete, well off to the left of the chart, and intermediate C is continuing lower as a 5-wave impulse with the end of minor 3, 4, and now minor 5. Minor 3 is 7,130.557 less than or shorter than minor wave 1. This means minor 5 is limited to no longer than equality in length with minor 3 at 10,594.35, so that the core Elliott wave rule stating minor 3 may not be the shortest is met. The target would see that limit respected. At 12,417, intermediate C would reach equality in length with intermediate A. Within minor wave 5, minute wave 1 may be complete over here, and this downward movement does look really good as a 5-wave impulse. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, zigzag for 2, triangle for 4, short, sharp little 5th wave. Minute wave 2 may now also be complete if it's going to end at the logarithmic function of the 0.618 Fibonacci ratio, which is 22424.809. I like to be mathematically accurate. This is not mathematically the Fibonacci ratio of minute wave 1. A logarithmic function has been applied to that ratio, so I know it's slightly pedantic, but I like to be accurate. And I would prefer to use the logarithmic functions of Fibonacci ratios for Bitcoin because they are more likely to show where support and resistance is found in this very extreme market with extreme volatility. That's something I've learned the hard way over the years. And so I expect it's possible minute 2 could be over here, but for this wave count it would actually look better if it continues higher and has a more obvious 3-wave look to it. But so far, let's expect it could be over here. If that's the case, this wave counters it could be immediately bearish, considering some strong downward movement for a 3rd wave, maybe in its early stages. 2 may not move beyond the start of 1 above 25,135.59. So even if this wave count has all sorts of problems, it's still useful in giving us the invalidation point, the point at which it's invalidated, gives us more confidence in a bullish wave count. So even if it starts to look a bit ridiculous, I'll still publish it on a weekly basis for this reason. At the weekly chart level, this is a wave count I see quite commonly that other people have for Bitcoin. Instead of seeing primary 1 over here, what if this is part of intermediate 4 within primary 1? Intermediate 1, 2, 3, 4, and now 5 in its early stages. The biggest reason why this is my alternate is the duration of intermediate 4 in comparison to intermediate 2. Intermediate 4 is 61 weeks in duration, intermediate 2 is 37 weeks in duration. Not twice the duration, but kind of close. It's a lot more than 1.5 times the duration. The difference is actually quite substantial here. It's okay if the 4th wave is a little bit longer lasting than the 2nd, but once it gets to this greater difference, the probability has to be judged to be lower because this is really unusual in Bitcoin's past price behavior. And I've got a full Elliott Wave count to the end of cycle wave 2. And the other reason why I've got a little problem with it is minor wave B here is a not really very good looking expanded flat, A, B, C. C is really long in relation to A. That slightly reduces the probability a little bit further. So this wave count is possible. Intermediate 1, intermediate 2 a zigzag, 3 an impulse, 4 an expanded flat, and 5 underway. If 4 continues further, it may not move into 1 price territory below 13,826.76. Basic analysis now. At the weekly chart level, this weekly candlestick may have seen downward movement ending with a selling climax and a bullish long lower wick, an upward reaction, a bearish pullback, another bullish long lower wick, and this last completed weekly candlestick is really bullish. It's not a bullish reversal pattern, but it is very bullish. It's closed above the open of the candlestick 2 weeks prior, and prices closed very close to highs for the week with another bullish long lower wick, bouncing up off support about 19,870. This week also has support from volume. Volume is increasing and pushing price higher, and volume is above the 50-week moving average. On balance, volume gives us a bullish signal this week with a break above rather weak resistance. It's at next also rather weak resistance. A break above this would be another weak bullish signal. ADX declining this week. There's no clear trend at the weekly chart level. RSI money flow index both neutral. ATR still continuing to decline as price moves lower and now higher. Absolutely normal behavior if this low is sustainable. Bitcoin does tend to move slowly off its lows. That's one thing that makes them very hard to identify. Stochastics also neutral, and I'll leave this here. The correlation coefficient between Bitcoin and the S&P 500 is absolutely broken down into neutral territory. No statistical significance at this point in time. It's broken right through that to actually negative before. So I see a lot of people, particularly online, and every now and then members make comments. Lara, your analysis of the S&P is expected to go, seeing it go down. You expect Bitcoin to go up. Don't they have to move in opposite directions? Don't they have to move in the same direction because they should have a positive correlation? Absolutely not. The math shows that they just don't have a reliable, statistically significant positive correlation. For a correlation to be statistically significant, it has to be outside of this shaded area, either consistently positive or consistently negative, and they very obviously just aren't. So I'm not going to assume that. At the daily chart level, there was last week's identified pennant pattern, and I had a target for you, but it was below this low. But I did also say that if the Elliott Wave count is correct, then the pennant pattern target may be too optimistic. That's exactly what happened. We've got a short, sharp downward thrust, and now a turn and a strong move higher, with good support from volume on this strong upward session. A little bit of decline in volume for the following two sessions, but now the current session, which is incomplete, is showing again stronger volume than the previous two sessions, so bulls are coming back into the picture. I'd expect support to probably continue to hold around 21,400. ADX is declining. The negative DX line is just crossed above the positive. There's no clear trend at the daily chart level either, but ADX is telling us there's a potential trend change back to the upside, but there's no clear trend at this time frame. It is a lagging indicator based on a 14-day average here. And so given ADX tells us there's no clear trend and price has just overshot what was resistance at 2400, and stochastics has just moved into overbought territory, if price is still consolidating, we could see a continuation of the upward swing to resistance at 24,500, or it could move down here. This could be a false breakout, although it is having some push from volume, so probably more likely to continue higher to 24,400. And then if it gets up there and ADX is still indicating no clear trend, would expect a downward swing within this larger consolidation here. No signal from on-balance volume at the daily chart level. It's at weak resistance. RSI and money flow index both neutral. ATR continuing to decline as price falls, and now as price moves higher, it's essentially flat. So again, really normal behavior for Bitcoin off its lows. That's all from me with your Bitcoin analysis this week. I hope everyone had a fantastic weekend.